Picture this. A young couple steps off a plane in Denver, exhausted, clutching a printed itinerary from Amsterdam. They came expecting exactly what the movies promised: fast food on every corner, strangers who smile but don't mean it, a country loud and cold at its core. 3 weeks later, standing at a gas station in rural Wyoming, the wife turns to her husband with tears forming in her eyes and says something a stranger catches on camera. "Nobody warned us it would feel like this." That video hit 11 million views in 4 days. And she is not alone. Thousands of Europeans are saying the same thing on Reddit, on TikTok, in quiet confessions filmed from rental cars. America is not what they were told. Not even close. For decades, Europeans grew up on a very specific myth of America, built by Hollywood, sharpened by news headlines, repeated by comedians who'd never actually been there. But then, reality had other plans. Nobody, not the backpackers, not the honeymooners, not even the seasoned travelers, expected what actually happened once they landed. This is the story of what happens when centuries of stereotypes collide with the truth. Stay with us, because by the end, you'll understand why so many Europeans leave America with a completely different story than the one they came looking for. Chapter 1. The food will be a disaster. Ask any European before their first trip what they expect from American food, and you'll hear the same answer: greasy, fake, everything the size of a small dog. But then, they actually eat. In New Orleans, a Belgian couple wanders into an unassuming restaurant behind a laundromat and comes out speechless. The gumbo they just tasted, dark and smoky, didn't resemble anything they'd eaten in 20 years back home. In Nashville, a German tourist bites into hot chicken for the first time, eyes watering, laughing so hard he can barely narrate his own reaction. The video, meant as a joke, gets millions of views. Here's what nobody tells them beforehand. America isn't one food culture. It's dozens, layered by generations of immigration. Barbecue in Texas tastes nothing like barbecue in the Carolinas. Pizza in Chicago and pizza in New York would insult each other if compared. The stereotype survives because fast food chains are visible and instantly recognizable worldwide, but the fourth-generation family restaurant serving recipes passed down since 1920 stays invisible, hiding in plain sight. So if the food stereotype collapses this fast, what happens when Europeans confront the other big assumption: the people themselves? Chapter 2. American friendliness is fake. Europeans arrive convinced that American friendliness is a performance, a have a nice day that means nothing. But then, something strange keeps happening. A French backpacker gets a flat tire on a rural Montana highway with zero signal. Within 15 minutes, 3 vehicles stop. The third driver doesn't just help, he follows her 40 miles to make sure she reaches town safely, refuses payment, and drives off before she can get his name. A British couple posts a video titled, simply, "I don't understand these people," describing a stranger who drove them across town just to help find one grocery item. Yes, some of it is scripted. But underneath the surface script lies something real: a culture. Especially outside major cities, built on instinctive hospitality rooted in frontier history, where helping a stranger wasn't optional, it was survival. That wasn't even the most shocking part. The most shocking part was realizing how uncomfortable it felt to admit they'd been wrong about an entire nation. If friendliness collapses this dramatically, what happens when Europeans confront the fear they were warned about: most danger? Chapter 3. America is dangerous everywhere. European news coverage of American crime is relentless. So travelers board their flights bracing for danger on every corner. But then, a young Irish traveler walks through downtown Chicago late at night, tense from months of warnings, and finds families out for ice cream, street performers drawing crowds, nothing matching the mental image built by years of headlines. A Portuguese couple in small-town Vermont discover homes that don't even lock their doors. kids riding bikes until dark. This doesn't erase real risk in certain cities. No honest story pretends otherwise. But the biggest surprise is the sheer regional variance. America isn't one place with one danger level. It's a patchwork. And a 5-minute news segment simply can't capture that. Psychologists call it availability bias. Dramatic events get covered. Ordinary safe Tuesdays never make the news. And if fear turns out to be this misplaced, what happens when the most visual stereotype of all, what an American actually looks like, gets tested? Chapter 4. America looks like the movies Hollywood trained the world to picture one specific American face, one kind of suburban street. But then, travelers step into Queens, New York, or a food market in Los Angeles, and the image shatters instantly. A Czech traveler counts languages on a single subway ride and loses count past a dozen. A Polish tourist finds Korean barbecue, Oaxacan mole, and Ethiopian injera within the same city block, later admitting, "I expected American food and found the entire world in a few square miles." A Belgian traveler sums it up in a line quoted across forums, "I came looking for American culture and found 400 cultures wearing one flag." Once you understand America isn't one culture but hundreds, you start to understand why the next assumption that there's no real nature, just cities and highways, is about to fall apart too. Chapter 5. There's no real nature here. A Swiss couple, coming from a country built on alpine scenery, plans their trip entirely around cities, treating nature as an afterthought. But then, a last-minute detour to Glacier National Park changes everything. Turquoise lake so clear they can see fish 20 feet down, snow-capped peaks in the middle of summer, mountain goats crossing the trail. The husband, an experienced Alps hiker, is filmed saying quietly, "I have never seen anything like this in my life." This reaction repeats across thousands of travelers. Yellowstone's otherworldly landscapes, the star-drenched Utah desert sky, ancient redwood forests taller than cathedral spires. 95% of American land isn't urban at all. Yet almost none of it makes it into the movies that shape the world's image of this country. But nothing, not the food, not the friendliness, not the wilderness, prepares travelers for the final discovery. Because the deepest surprise of all isn't about landscapes. It's about people. Chapter 6. The moment everything changed, a Spanish woman traveling alone after losing her father unexpectedly finds herself at a diner counter in rural Georgia, trying not to cry in public. A stranger notices, asks gently if she's okay, not performative, just still and patient. For the next hour, a man she'll never see again shares his own story of loss and helps her feel. For the first time since the funeral, like grief didn't have to be carried alone. She later writes that this hour became the most meaningful moment of her entire trip. This is the thread running underneath everything once the stereotypes strip away an enormous, largely invisible landscape of raw human connection. Strangers holding each other up, asking nothing in return. Nobody boards a flight expecting this. They expect culture shock about guns, about size, about excess. They don't expect to cry at a diner counter with a stranger. But again and again, the final confession is the same. I didn't come here to fall in love with the people. But I did. Conclusion: maybe this means stereotypes, no matter how confidently repeated, can never capture a place this vast and contradictory. America contains real extremes: kindness and struggle, beauty and excess, safety in one town and danger 3 hours away. It resists simple summary because it was never built to be simple. So here's a question worth sitting with. How many other places, other people, are we confidently judging right now without ever actually showing up to see them for ourselves? If this surprised you even half as much as it surprised the travelers who lived it, tell us in the comments, has a trip ever completely rewritten what you thought you knew? And if you want more stories like this, hit like and subscribe. There's a lot more truth still waiting to be uncovered. This video is based on publicly available traveler experiences, media reports, and cultural observations, and is intended for educational purposes only.